Thank you for staying with us on KTN Sunrise Live. I'm excited about this particular discussion. Well, primarily because it's what I do for a living, but also to talk about why this is very important for you, whether you are in broadcast, communications, PR, or not. The art of public speaking is so important. I think public speaking, and we'll hear from our guests, for me, I think it constitutes every time you're speaking to somebody. That is the art of public speaking. But how important is that for you as a doctor, an engineer, whatever it is you do, even if you shine shoes for a living, how important is it to gain some public speaking skills? Other than that, we'll also be talking about get paid to speak. Yes, not only will it enhance some of your qualities at the workplace, it can also earn you some money. That sounds like some music to your ears, I'm sure. So this morning we're talking to Paul Achar, who's a communications consultant from Jade Communications. Nice to have you with us.
Thank
and then we also have Bbanga from Public Image Africa. Good to have you both.
Morning. Thank you.
Morning. It's good. I've interviewed, I think, two of you on separate occasions, so it's really good to have you both on the same forum. So public speaking, I think a lot of us think it is the recitals that we do at the Kenya National Music Festivals, and it's, the big booming voice. Perhaps we can start with you, Paul, to just tell us what public speaking is about.
Well, I think the recitals that we do at the Kenya National Theatre is also part of public speaking. But public speaking is not just limited to that. Public speaking is, in my view, anytime you're talking to an audience, it could be an audience of 5, an audience of 10,000, and you have to make a presentation in front of them, a presentation that focuses on content that makes sense, delivery that is captivating, and with an expectation to achieve something at the end of your presentation. That to me is public speaking.
Okay, all right. And usually what is the aim of, after you've made a presentation to 5 or 10,000 people, what is the expected outcome, Derek? After you've spoken to these people, hopefully what should they come away with?
Well, I love this quote from JFK. He said, "The only reason to get up and speak is to change the world." When you've had that one-on-one meeting, 1 to 2 meeting, speaking to a crowd of 200 or 2,000, like Paul says, it should be to change people's minds, to have them alter their course of action, to have them come onto your way. And you have achieved your goal if you are able to have them do that. So really, it's really about having people completely change, literally, the way that they're thinking, things that they're doing, or at least introduce a concept or something which will lead them to achieving that.
Absolutely. So obviously there has to be an outcome. If you go into a sphere and you start speaking to people and it doesn't seem to have changed their minds in any way, do we then say communication in that case has failed?
Well, not necessarily. There are times that you might speak to an audience and change might take time. There's that allowance. But the three primary reasons why we engage in public speaking: to inform, to persuade, and to entertain. So you have to be aware of which of the three you're engaging in order to be effective and what the audience expects at each particular time.
Okay, all right. Now, one of the myths about public speaking, and we won't name particular individuals, but that you use all the big words and it's one vocabulary after the next. And that usually shows, how well educated you are, right?
Absolutely not. Let's quell that myth once and for all. Public speaking or speaking to an audience or communicating in a meeting is not about using grandiose words. It is not about being superfluous. You see, notice how I'm using those words?
Yes.
It's actually about communicating with your audience. And so again, you have to gauge your audience. There's something called audience management. You've got to know who you're speaking to. There are certain cases where certain words that you use are appropriate. For example, I deal with a lot of clients whose main goal is to communicate in the workplace, and what I find them using is a lot of corporate jargon, for example. So corporate jargon, what that does is it actually allows the audience or the person that you're communicating with to switch off, because they've heard this word over and over again. It doesn't make sense anymore. So the primary aim of communicating is to be able to make sure that your message gets across, and if you use certain words, if you're inappropriate, then you are not going to achieve that goal of communicating.
Okay.
And I would say the mark of an excellent communicator, what I would call a world-class communicator, is that person who can be able to transform those technical, the technical knowledge, the technical competences that finds expression through words into language that anybody would be able to connect with. So throw aside the big words and just talk in a way that connects with people.
I have a great slide that I show. I saw a picture of a 7-year-old boy, and I ask the people who are participating, I ask them, can you get your message across? Whether you're a technical person, you're a doctor, you're a scientist, you're an engineer, can you get your message across to this 7-year-old boy? That there is the key. Simplicity.
Yes, keeping it simple.
One of my speech mentors always used to tell me, make this presentation and talk to me as though you're talking to a 9-year-old. Please.
Absolutely.
You know, so
absolutely. So it's keeping it simple, and you know, perhaps the fact that you use all this technical jargon just, you know, sets you apart, and everybody thinks, I can't relate to what he is saying. Let's talk about public speaking and the importance for anyone that's watching. There's a lot of people who say, well, I work in a lab. Okay, my work is to, you know, analyze samples. I work in IT. You know, I manage the Twitter account for the company for which I work. Why do I need public speaking skills? That's for Paul, that's for Derek, that's for Yvonne. You know, they work in that field of, you know, that line of work. Why would anybody else need public speaking skills?
Well, a time is going to come for that lab professional, for that IT professional to stand up and try and express the brilliance of their ideas to the rest of the world. If they're unable to do it, nobody will know how brilliant they really are. And you know, the ideas that we do have that change, the ideas that have the potential to change the world, only find outward expression through our words. That's the only way. So for this lab professional, for this IT professional, this accountant who did not think that they needed to know how to speak, the world has also changed. Right now, we are required to communicate a lot more. We're in the communication age. Communication, that's where we live in, and everyone expects that regardless of what you do, even though you're at the back room, at some point you will have to express yourself. And those people who become stars in their fields, the ones who get to be recognized, well, to get world recognition, or even get to the corner office, are not just those who are very good with the technical competences now. It's those people who are able to communicate, inspire, and connect.
Yvonne, public speaking, presentation skills, communication skills, call it what you will, has become the most important criteria for success in any organization, at any level. This lab technician, how are you going to be seen? How are you going to be heard? How are you going to be promoted without the ability to express your thoughts, without the ability to articulate the wonderful work like Paul is saying that you're doing? It is a vital skill regardless of who you are. How did that lab technician get that job? He must have gone through an interview process.
Absolutely.
And you are not going to be hired simply on the basis of your CV or your resume. You have got to bring communication skills to the table, and it's become so important for every single person.
And we have seen it also in this country with the new constitution and the new government taking, you know, taking shape. The cabinet secretaries, all these people had to go through some vetting. And the whole idea was not just to express how knowledgeable you are. The whole idea was also to play to the public gallery, to inspire confidence in the people who are watching, to say that, well, that person can be a cabinet secretary. We can trust them. You know, so it's taken a whole dimension. The whole, it's of the essence that any professional, anybody who is engaged in any work that profits them should invest in good communication skills.
Some of the careers you mentioned at the beginning when you're introducing us, you talked about doctors, you talked about somebody who polishes shoes. I've been to a doctor's office where this person was trying to diagnose me,
Right.
and I couldn't understand what they were telling me.
Right.
I just nodded my head because
Yes.
I didn't want to come across as so communication skills are everywhere. I mean, studies have even gone in terms of nurses speaking to patients.
Yes.
The ability to communicate will help patients heal better. It's on and on and on. I'd be hard-pressed to find a career or a profession where public speaking, communication skills are not needed.
And how seriously do you think we take this, though? We're, of course, this is... Are we right to say this is a new concept, that we're just starting to grasp the importance of this in this country? Do you think we still have a long way to go, or are we still largely ignorant of the importance of this in our lives?
Well, we are getting there. And my own experience is... It's also quite generational. There's a generation that's really ambitious, that's moving ahead really fast, and they're investing so much on their communication skills. Talking about doctors, I've had the chance to work with a doctor in recent days, and a few years back, doctors didn't think that they needed to communicate, but this doctor walks in and says, well, there's a difference between a doctor whose waiting room is always full, and another one who hardly gets people. Right. And people drive from across town to get to this other doctor. And the only reason is, when you get in there, he'll spend 45 minutes talking with you.
Right.
And
putting you at ease
and communicating with you. Not too nice for the people who are waiting, but
I'll get there too.
Absolutely. So I'm seeing a shift, and people are investing a lot more in their communication skills, and we have also seen it at the highest levels of government. We now do have a president who can deliver a speech when his speech writers rise to the occasion. Some days they constrain him. But so from that level, we are seeing the pace being set, and we do expect that everybody else is going to work at getting the communication skills to world class.
Yvonne, here are my observations. We have a lot of young, brilliant people who graduate from our universities and colleges who go out into the workplace. Technically, they're brilliant. Academically, they're qualified. The one trait that I must say that I see that is common in most of these cases is that inability to be able to communicate. And here is somebody who is qualified for the job, as I said, technically adept, academically qualified, but unfortunately, they cannot communicate. And so they're not giving themselves a fair chance. They're not getting hired by the right companies. They're struggling to make a name for themselves. They're struggling to get ahead, or they get hired and they're struggling to get ahead at their places of work. So it's at that level in terms of young people. And like Paul said, even at the top level, I have clients, CEOs, who are terrified of standing up in front of an audience, and
they need to, on various occasions, I would imagine.
Absolutely need to have it. And so it has become of utmost importance in today's world. And in fact, in a world where technologically we are being, bombarded by things like Twitter and mobile phones and things like that, it has become even more important. That one-on-one communication, that touch, that ability to talk to an audience has become of even more importance.
It's important that you mention that, of course, people are highly qualified, and this brings us to that incident. I think that epitomizes what we're talking about today, which is the fact that you may be very qualified on paper, but you raise doubts about your ability based on how, you speak and present yourself. I think Phyllis Kandie had a bit of a hard time, during the vetting process. Like you said, the vetting process is pretty much a getting to know you kind of thing. It's like an interview. Do you think this is one of the examples? Of course, she eventually, got the position, but it wasn't without a bit of a fight.
Yeah, well, this is how I would approach it. We go to school, we go through institutions, we qualify to gain technical skills, and then we get into the workplace, and we are always arguing as professionals. We are arguing our position. That's what we are pretty much trained to do. However, we are not trained as professionals to tell stories. Transform those technical competences and experience into compelling narratives. Now, the people who are able to do that, the professionals who are able to do that, are the ones who become what we call excellent communicators are those people who seem to be able to get ahead easily because they are able to tell stories. And telling stories is not, it doesn't have to be far-fetched stories. It could be just what you have encountered in your professional engagement.
Right.
It could be how there might have been a challenge within the organization and you rose to the occasion, make yourself the hero, how you surmounted the challenge, and use language that brings this whole experience to life. There you have your story. What you've done is just transformed your technical competences into a compelling narrative.
Absolutely.
You know, Yvonne, this begs the question, and I'm sure you're going to ask this, in terms of, are you actually born with the ability to...
That's right. That's the next question. In fact, is it oh, well, you have the ability to read minds as well. Michael Rafula says, is public speaking genetic?
Okay, here's the thing. Nobody, and I can actually categorically say that, is actually born with the 100% ability to be able to, you know, communicate. You think of great orators, or you think of great communicators or great presenters. However, everybody can be made into a great communicator or a great speaker. And even the great speakers worked on their craft. We can go all the way back to ancient Greece. There's one of the famous orators, he was called Demosthenes. Demosthenes has been known throughout history as one of the great communicators. Demosthenes suffered from asthma. He was terrified of speaking in front of crowds. Demosthenes' story, just to cut it short, he took 5 years to work on his craft, on being able to communicate and then stand in front of that pantheon and be able to communicate them. And he trained himself. In fact, what he did is he went into hiding. He shaved half his head off. And he said, I will only come into public when I have worked on my craft and I'm able to speak and communicate. So the good news is that everybody can be a great speaker, and you don't have to be born with that particular ability. In fact, nobody's actually born with that ability. You may have an inclination towards that. You may be put in front of an audience at 2 years old, like I was, by my dad, you know, perform in front of the other parents. But everybody can work on becoming a great speaker or a great communicator.
Okay, and I think, you know, that's the great thing that we're talking about now, because some people say, well, some tribes seem to have it more than others. Some people from a particular region, some people who are born in, and I'll put it to you this way, that some people who are born in privileged homes have the ability to speak more than those who are born in low-income families, for example.
Well, great speaking has to do with our socialization. There are people who get the opportunity from an early age to make presentations. They go through a school system, an education system, both formal and informal, that requires them to express themselves. Now, those people will definitely have an edge when it comes to their careers later on, because they learnt it a lot earlier. But if you did not have that chance to have the opportunity to learn and to get platforms to express yourself at an early age, it doesn't stop at that.
It's never too late?
It's never too late. What I keep saying is, as an adult, once you realize that you have certain deficiencies, it's up to you to stop blaming your history and to focus on where you want to go and work on and figure out ways to address those deficiencies. That's why people like us exist, speech coaches, to help you discover, begin by discovering what is your communication style, what are the things that are holding you back, are they psychological, are they, you know, what are they, and then go ahead and recommend a program or a module that works for you. I've seen people who walked through the door and say that they would never be able to deliver a speech, and go ahead to deliver amazing presentations that got the whole world thinking, wow, you know, this was quite...
he's a born speaker.
He's a born speaker, but they don't know the work that it took. It's, I like to give the example of an athlete preparing for the Olympics. What we see is those 3 minutes of glory. What we don't know is the 8 years or even more of sweat, blood, and tears to get to the Olympics. Same thing with public speaking.
Like any craft, you need to practice and practice that you become more comfortable. This is what I'll tell people. You know, look for opportunities, even in small ways, to start speaking in front of people. You know, at your jama, you know, at the kesha, at your church service on Sunday, somebody's birthday in the office. Just stand up, and say one or two words. And the more you do that, the more you will gain confidence.
Okay.
And then, you know, hopefully if you really want to improve your craft and you're somebody who hasn't been doing it, you will join one of the courses that either Paul runs or I run, and then you can be able to hone it so that you become more confident. But anyone can get up and speak in your own small way. So just look for small opportunities to do that.
Okay.
And when you're able to do that, you can profit. And I think,
yes. Indeed. Before we get into that, because yes, this is also, and Kenyans will love to hear this, that, you know, you can actually get paid to speak, like anything that involves money, really? Just me standing up on a podium speaking and getting paid? We'll get to that in a moment. But what about the stammerers? Is there any hope for them, those who have a stammer or a stutter? Michael Wafula asks via Twitter.
I think there is. There is an opportunity to be able to improve. The people who stammer due to extreme nervousness, all you need to learn is how to handle nervousness, harness that negative energy that is nervousness into what I call positive energy, and be comfortable with the topic that you're going to talk about, so you can be able to handle it. There are also certain instances where some of these conditions could border on the medical, and that's where you would have not a speech coach, you'd have a therapist coming in to be able to assist and be able to help you substantially get to a place where you can deliver, you know, to acceptable standards.
I actually know a therapist who helps people who stammer. So if this listener wants to get in touch with me, I can connect them with a professional who can help them if it's a medical condition.
And there are some great speakers whom we know, whom we just discover later on, 10, 50 years after they're dead, that they did indeed, you know, have challenges with speaking and did stammer or stutter, and this is known, and they've been able to overcome this. So it is indeed possible.
It's absolutely possible to overcome something like that. In fact, some of the best speakers in the world had some of these deficiencies. That story of Demosthenes I was telling you about, asthma, stammering, those are all conditions that he suffered. So you can practice, you can, if it's medical, you can get some sort of treatment. But a lot of these stammerers, as Paul says, a lot of it is psychological. And so once you're able to go through that, then you can hopefully overcome and become a good speaker.
So let's talk about getting some money now, which is the big one, getting paid to speak. Let's talk about this event and, you know, what it's about.
Well, on the 29th of June this month at the Pan-Afric, we do have a session that we'll be conducting called Get Paid to Speak. Now, this seminar has come about as a result of not just our own personal experiences and our own personal journeys. I get paid to speak now, and, you know, stand up, come, speak, and
so do I.
You know, and so do you.
And so
you
do
know,
I. Yes,
and but like we mentioned, that we're in the communication age. The paid speaking circuit in Kenya and East Africa is growing exponentially. We have churches seeking speakers, we have organizations, we have associations, we have companies, we have, you know, the list is goes on and on. Seeking speakers. Now, we do have three kinds of speakers who get paid. We do have the what we call the motivational speakers, who we are more aware of in this particular part of the world. The motivational speakers, the ones who touch more on our emotions and inspire us towards achieving something for our life, with our lives. We also have the content speakers. Now, content speakers are those professionals who've been able to transform their competences into compelling narratives, and they get called in to come and speak. And then we also have keynote speakers. Now, keynote speakers might not be people who have great technical skills, but they have absolute name recognition based on their achievements and their elevation in society. You would want them to come and grace your occasion. Just by having them there, it raises the profile of the event. And then we have the other category, who are entertainers, who also get to speak. So all those people are getting paid to speak in this country. And we're looking at getting paid from, you know, amounts of 2,000 shillings to even 600,000 shillings per speech happening in this country.
And this is happening here.
I mean, if you look across the world, in the West, where the paid speaking circuit is huge, ex-presidents, ex-generals, ex-athletes are making money hand over fist. I mean, literally, you look at Tony Blair and the Bill Clintons of this world.
Even George Bush.
George Bush, they're paid astronomical sums
and the
of
former
money.
Prime Minister now is also...
And the former Prime Minister now is also getting into that.
Yeah, getting into that.
But this is also growing in this part of the world, where we have people who have had distinguished careers, who could add value to events that companies are holding, could add value to associations. Paul mentioned a whole list of places where you can speak. But it's not just people who have had those sort of distinguished careers. He talked about if you have content. If there is something that you're passionate about, start with there. You have a story to tell the world. You love what you're doing as a salesperson, as an accountant, as an administrator. There is an opportunity for you to share that passion with other people. And not just share them, but also get a little bit of money in it. And then you distinguish yourself, and as the more you become, I mean, Paul and I went through this when we first started out, you know, you start out even, in fact, one of the biggest secrets about getting paid to speak is start out for free. Just go in and say, I will talk for an hour, I've got this topic that I'm passionate about. Give me a chance to talk for free. The next time that person will say, yeah, here's 10 shillings, I'll give you bus fare, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely.
And so that's how you sort of start building a career. I mean, we'll talk a lot about this, obviously, on our seminar on the 29th of June, Saturday. But anyone can really get paid to speak. You don't have to have had a long career.
And we also have speakers bureaus that are coming up in this part of the world. We run a speakers bureau at Jade Communications, the Jade Speakers Bureau, that manages speakers. So in a sense, you might, you could...
Oh, really? They get they're getting managed now.
Yeah, you get managed. Look for speaking opportunities for you. Negotiate the contracts on your behalf. Most people in this, most speakers in this part of the world are not even aware that if you've been invited to speak in Nakuru, for example, you need to negotiate your travel insurance. What if something happens between Nairobi and Nakuru? Who pays for that? Now, those are some of the things that the Speakers Bureau puts together in the contract and enables you to be able to have, you know, to really profit from your speaking engagement.
This is amazing that the speaking circuit is growing, and that now you're having managers for that process. That's very interesting. Let's get into a couple of questions now. Mawira J asks, I have been paid to speak before, but I have to ask, does public speaking extend to PR? And this is where public speaking versus someone who's in public relations, obviously the two go hand in hand to some extent.
I'm trying to understand this question in terms of PR. Maybe as part of an event. For example, I don't know if this is answers this question. For example, emceeing work, moderating work, you can also get paid for that. Obviously, you know, whether it's at a wedding or some sort of a function or some sort. I'm not quite sure where he's going with that particular question, but suffice it to say, if he's already started
getting paid
to speak, then he's obviously doing something right.
He could be a PR professional, and he's called upon to talk about PR and gets paid to talk about PR, which most likely entails his experience. And another component of getting paid to speak, another aspect that I think we need to raise up is, if you're keen on getting onto the paid speaking circuit, you need to ask yourself, yes, I've been a professional, but what new thing have I brought into the world? What distinguishes my PR experience and my PR narrative from John or Jane's PR narrative? What's that distinctive factor?
I also think perhaps to some extent, you know, when you're speaking about something maybe you know well about, when it comes to promoting certain brands and products, I think a lot of people perhaps associate speaking in public with going out and, you know, doing some sort of PR or soft advertising for a product or a service. How do you handle the two?
Well, you know, that's an opportunity. If you work for a particular organization, you're going to speak on behalf of a particular product or service that they had. Yeah, that's one thing as far as your job is related. I think a lot of us in this part of the world are very modest about some of the things that we have achieved. One of the things that you can't be on the paid speaking circuit is modest. You've got to stand out. That's how you have to differentiate yourself. Now, I don't want somebody who's going to come and speak to me an after-dinner speech and talk to me for an hour and make it a sales pitch about a particular product. But you can absolutely throw in if there is a particular product or thing. And in fact, a lot of people will say, yeah, you come and speak. You want to talk about the seminar you're promoting? Sawa, you come and talk about it a little bit. But just don't make it that blatant in terms of promoting it.
Okay, all right. And selling it, in a softer way, as opposed to, like you say, 1 hour, pompously talking about a particular product. Or here's something else I'd like to ask, and everybody thinks, well, the people that are, very good at speaking publicly must have an accent. In other words, like, I've got to sound like I come from America, and I came from Maryland just the other day. There's that perception that for anybody else that speaks kawaida, as we like to say it, is not involved in public speaking. And you tend to see this with a lot of people. And I've had this, over the number of years that I've worked in this field. And, we're having an interview and we speak normally. And the minute the cameras are turned on, an accent comes out of nowhere. And we seem to get the idea that if we speak like we come from some other part of the world, that, we're more appreciated.
Well, authenticity is important, and it's key. And authenticity is not just, how we look, how we present ourselves, but even how we speak. And don't you just hate it when someone stands up and starts speaking and you can tell they're not being authentic?
Yes.
Your audiences just tune off immediately. I tell people this: work at delivery to a level that an audience can understand you. Make sure your words are clear, you pronounce your words just right, where people don't have to second guess what you meant. But
absolutely, yes.
Don't lose your authenticity. Just be you. If you're speaking in this context, many people in this particular, the majority of people in this context have what you'd call the Kenyan accent, which, hello, it's one of the best accents in the world. It's clear, and that's why many Kenyans have been able, many Kenyans have been able to get jobs in call centers, managing calls.
BPO outsourcing is now coming to Kenya.
Because we have a good accent. So just work at it, be natural, make sure that you pronounce your words just right.
Yvonne, you don't have an accent, but you pronounce your words correctly, you enunciate correctly. So it's about pronouncing and enunciation if the language you're going to be using or communicating is English. It's absolutely not about having some sort of fancy accent or an accent that you imported at the airport while you're in transit, going through London. and 42 different tribes, 42 wonderful accents. As Paul says, it's about being authentic, and it's about being able to communicate.
And just so we can correct this myth, it's not even about English. It's also about Swahili as well.
You read my mind. That's what I was about to say. That it doesn't matter which language you're using, whether it's Swahili, whether it's Kikuyu, Luo, Kamba, Kalenjin. Audiences would want you to be authentic and to pronounce your words just right. You don't want to stand up and speak Swahili with an accent.
And this is what we tend to do, Paul. It's now that we are speaking Kiswahili, we adopt the coastal accent. Sasa hivi tumesimama hapa ambapo tuko, and it's not everybody can speak like they come from the coast.
And they can read through you.
And yes,
like,
absolutely.
Absolutely. They're trying too hard. They're not being real. And as soon as an audience is suspicious of you, then it becomes harder to sell your message, because they'll be thinking maybe there's something this person is hiding. Why should I believe them?
Absolutely, so powerful. The minute they become suspicious of you, I think you've lost even before you begin. You open your mouth and everyone's like, okay, who are you, what are you up to, and what are you hiding? Okay, right. So getting paid to speak, and this is what we're saying. This is happening again on the 29th. And, what can people expect when they come, for this seminar?
Well, we're going to cover, how to get on the paid speaking circuit. We're going to talk some of the things that we've mentioned today in terms of finding out your content and things like that. We'll also do a little bit in terms of vocal coaching, in terms of how to prepare a speech, what are things that are people looking for, how to time your speech, all those things that make a good performance or presentation or speech great.
Okay.
We'll also help you find your message, your unique message. What makes you a distinct accountant, and how can you now go ahead and bless the world with the gift of your words through insights gained in your practice of accountancy.
Absolutely.
We're going to help you do that. We'll also help you learn how to negotiate speaking contracts and how you can be able to bargain and barter exchange. There are a lot of things that you can be able to do. Also open you up to the possibilities of that exist in this market and beyond, of getting onto the paid speaking circuit. We'll also help you figure out how you can market yourself as a paid speaker.
I think it's also a great networking opportunity to meet like-minded people who are interested in speaking, who are interested in getting paid to it. So again, those connections, this industry is burgeoning, but it's relatively small. And once you know one or two people are speaking, they can put you onto somebody else. Oh, I had I spoke at this particular organization or this particular company. They're looking for speakers to speak on this. And so again, it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to network with people who are interested in this.
Very quickly, because I think we have about a minute. And I think this one's to you, Derek, taking a look at the image in totality. Just very quickly, it's also not important what comes out of your mouth. It's also important how you present in totality.
We're going to cover that definitely in during the seminar. Again, audiences will drink you in visually. So it's also about not just being able to articulate and speak well, but also being able to be appropriate for your audience, whatever that presentation is. Now, again, it's not about wearing a three-piece suit necessarily for a particular audience, but it's about being appropriate to your audience, because you sell yourself also visually and through your public image.
All right, indeed. Thank you very much for coming in and talking to us on this issue. So great, always talking about public speaking, and very important. And I think there's a lot of people who are interested in that one. Mawira, who sent in a question clarifying, he said, what he meant to ask was, does PR necessarily require, does public speaking necessarily require complex PR in terms of training and presentation, or is it just natural? I think we talked a bit about that in the beginning, mentioning that yes, you're born with a little bit of it, but it's definitely good to keep improving on that. And this is also important for those who are already in the business, right?
Yep.
So it's not just for those wanting to get into it.
And even retired professionals.
There you go.
Yeah, they have experience that has been gained over the years. They should illuminate the world with the gift of those experiences by talking about them.
Absolutely.
And they can be paid.
Not to just die with it, to definitely share that information. Thank you very much, Paul, Achar, Derek Bbanga. It was very good to have you both.
Thank you so much.
In studio, and good luck with that. That event takes place on the 29th of this month. It's actually a Saturday. So the reason we're doing this interview today is because you have between today and then to plan for it. And you can get in touch with them on Twitter at Derek Bbanga, at Paul Achar, if you want to get involved in this. Get paid to speak. This is another avenue in which we can earn money, but also an avenue that can make you earn more money in whatever field it is that you are involved in. We can never say it enough. The art of communication is so important. So as you shine those shoes today, as you work in the lab, as you work on your IT, as you work in the media, and even as you are retired, think about sharing that information. Here's my quote of the day for you today. I want to leave you with something important to think about. Here we go. The two most important days in your life are the day you're born and the day you find out why. The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. In fact, by the way, they will help you find your message. So that one is important there as well. Have a great day ahead. We will see you again tomorrow. Be kind to yourselves and to each other. My name is Yvonne Okwara. Bye-bye.